which explains how the pugilist finally learned how to dance.
Now, The Last Ship is about a guy from Wall's End who gets pulled back to his hometown and he gets involved in a big project. Now, you've been pulled into the show The Last Ship, and now you're on stage and you're building ships again on stage on Broadway. Does it feel sometimes that life is sort of imitating art here? What's going on?
There's a school of acting where they encourage you to think of where the needs of the character and the needs of the actor playing that character coincide. Well, this is a no-brainer. The men in the play are trying to save a shipyard. I'm trying to save a play on a daily basis. It's a battle on a daily basis. So that's my acting thing.
Now, I saw it without you and I saw it with you, and I'm wondering, why didn't you put yourself in the show from the very beginning? It's a semi-autobiographical play, as they say. It's about your life because you're from Wall's End, you're from the shipbuilding town. So why didn't you put yourself in the role to begin with, since you are an actor?
I never thought of myself being in this piece. I wrote the role that I'm playing currently for a dear friend of mine who's from my town as well, called Jimmy Nail. And I had no intention of doing anything but write the music and give the story. But there was a unique set of circumstances occurred where, like all of the new musicals on Broadway that are struggling, we had this unique situation where the writer could actually step in and sell tickets because he's a name. It's me. And the producer said, "You have to go on the show." I said, "No way. I don't want to do that." "Well, you have to, or we'll close." And 100 people will be out of work over Christmas. They blacked me.
Over Christmas.
And I said, "Okay, you're telling me, so to keep this play running, I have to throw my best friend under the bus, who's been working with me for 5 years on this thing." They said, "Yes." I said, "I won't do it." I said, "If you think this is a good idea, you suggest that to him." So they went to Jimmy, they sat him down and showed him the figures and told them what would happen if this happened. And he said, "Absolutely, Sting should play this role. I will give him my blessing and my support, and I'll be there every day for him. I'll be his understudy, and I can't wait to give him notes." Which he does after every act.
And Rachel, what is it like having the guy who wrote the music and lyrics on stage giving you vocal notes, a guy who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Yeah. I mean, is that intimidating for you?
Yes. No, it is different. Sting has been at every rehearsal, every tech run, every single part of this process. He's been there. He knows it inside out. And to have him now on stage join us, it just feels so natural. It feels like it should have happened. It was always supposed to happen. And it's just lovely having him on stage with us, obviously. So it's been a great process.
I think the play is great without me. I think the play with Jimmy is fantastic. But it's just the nature of Broadway at the moment. They need a star name to part with their money, and it's expensive, Broadway, and that's part of the equation, So I was willing to take part. I'm happy now. I'm doing it. I'm having a great time. But at first it was, how did I get into this? I'm in costume, Jimmy's not. How did this reversal take place?
But the first week that you performed, you almost doubled the box office, close to. So I'm wondering, were you surprised by that figure? Did you think it would be more or less, or?
Well, I'm certainly glad it made a difference. I mean, it would have been, you've gone in the play and it's gone down. So I'm heartened by that.
So if you sold $300,000 worth of tickets the first week, why don't you just stay in the show until it turns a profit or wins a Tony?
Well, that's interesting. I would be happy to do that, but I have a contract to perform with Paul Simon in Australia and then in Europe for 6 months, and I honor my contracts, and we just have to trust that when I leave, we can carry on.
So what does happen when you leave? I mean, how do you see this going?
You asking me to foretell the future?
What have the conversations been? Can you tell us?
The conversations are, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. As I say, the play as it is wonderful. The people who come in the theatre love it, and they go out. The word of mouth is fantastic. But we're fighting a battle on many fronts. In the theatre, we win that battle every day. Outside, the perception of this play is, oh, it's about a shipyard and, his thing in it, or, he wrote it. They're not sure about it. And so word of mouth takes time. I'm hoping that this 6 weeks that I'm in the play, word of mouth will increase, and so we can reach a tipping point where the play can carry on without us, or not. I don't think you can or you should confuse artistic success with commercial success, or artistic failure with commercial failure. It's a strange business. I'm very proud of the work we've done. I'm very proud of the play as it is. I think it's a fantastic play. People should come whether I'm in it or not. That's my feeling.
But you followed a well-trod path in a lot of rock stars and pop stars that have written scores to Broadway musicals, and a lot of them find that this same Broadway's a very tough industry, as we were saying. And did you get any advice from, I don't know, Bono or Paul Simon or Elton John or Cyndi Lauper or Billy Joel? There's...
Paul Simon is a dear friend of mine, and I'm touring with him. And he said to me, if things start going badly, don't get anywhere near it. Don't tie yourself. Don't tie yourself to the front of that train, they'll kill you. So I said, thank you, Paul, and did exactly what he told me. For me, it's a great adventure. What am I risking? I'm risking my reputation. I'm just having the time of my life, and it's a difficult thing. It's a difficult challenge, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I knew going in this was not a shoe-in as a success. It's a difficult subject. Doing a new original musical is almost, it's never done. You either do Beverly Hills Cop the musical, or Every Breath You Take the Police jukebox musical. I'm not interested. I want to do something difficult. If I'm going to fall off a ladder, I don't want to fall off the bottom rung. We went for the top rung here, and I'm very proud of that.
Now, there is some difficult material in this play. The hero of the play, the protagonist, he goes back to his hometown in part because his father has passed away and he's missed the funeral. In your book, Broken Music, you talk about the fact that you missed your father's funeral and your mother's funeral, and there was for some complex reasons. When you're on stage, when some of these issues are going past you, does it feel like this is part of your grieving process? Is this part of the reason why you did this play?
It's interesting that I wrote this thing in the first place to get away from me writing other people's stories, writing about my community and people within that community, but unconsciously, I seem to be revealing more about myself than I would have intended. And there are elements, as you mentioned, of me and my life in the character of Gideon. And I have to say, every night in the graveyard scene, it breaks me up. I find it very hard to watch. I know what's going to happen, but it always hits me hard. I think because I didn't grieve my parents in a traditional way, I was forced to grieve them in a much more protracted and extravagant way. But my parents are with me on stage every night. They really are, in a spirit way.
And Rachel, you rose to prominence in England when you were in the reality show, I'd Do Anything. And that sounds worse than it is because it's actually about, it's the song from Oliver, and you're auditioning to play Nancy in a very public way, yes. And you didn't win.
Yes.
Did you ever
Thankfully.
Thankfully. I was wondering, so how do you feel about being a reality show loser? Because you're obviously a winner now because you're on Broadway.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you feel about it then? Did you feel your career would ever recover?
No, I did this program to gain a bit more exposure in London. I was 26 and I was still not getting seen for West End shows. And it's who you know, it's how many people see you. And this was, to me, a great showcase to show what I could do to cast and directors in London. And it did just that. I actually had to decide between my final for Elphaba and Wicked on the same day that I was asked to go to Andrew Lloyd Webber's house to see if I got on the final programme of 12 Nancys competing for the top prize. And I chose Andrew's house because I knew Wicked would hopefully happen one day after this, and that I couldn't turn down such an exposing opportunity for my career. My mum said, it's the worst thing you're going to do, don't do it. But you know what, as Sting said, I had not much to lose. It was a great opportunity, and I'm so glad I did it. And I got, it helped me on my career path, and it was the best thing I'd done, so thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for not picking me. But it was great. It was a great time.
Sting, some of the reviewers said, they made a point of saying that there was one plot point about the ship being built sort of to rebuild the men's, their men's dignity that was a little not believable. But this was based on a true story, I think.
Yeah. There was a shipyard in Gdansk in Poland. It was the same shipyard where Lech Walesa began the Solidarity movement. And you could arguably say that it was Solidarity who brought down the Soviet Union eventually, shipyard workers. Anyway, just like in my town, the shipyard closed and the community went down. A local priest decided he would try and help them because there was alcoholism, families were breaking up, people were on the street. He raised the money in Polish clubs in America to get the wherewithal to build a ship. Brought it back home, convinced the men that they have to do this. They're building it to this day in a tractor factory, I think in Warsaw. Some men come and they go, but they continue welding, and their plan is to launch this ship and sail around the world themselves. I love that idea. It's so crazy, quixotic, even Homeric. And I thought this would be a lovely story to weld to the story of my town as a kind of allegory. And you know, the plot points that the critics mention, you have to get on board a metaphor. And if you don't get on board the metaphor, then don't go to the theater. You know, this is it's based in social reality, but it's magic realism. And that's what theater's about, metaphor, for me.
But some of the characters that are in the show are based on people that you knew? Or similar to people that you knew?
Very much. The first thing I did when I started writing is I wrote a list of the people I knew from my town, and a lot of them with a job, a foreman, a Marxist agitator, the shipyard intellectual. They were people I knew, they were people I made up, and then composites of both.
But I know this song all this time. I went back and looked at the lyrics yesterday, and even though you wrote it in, what, 89, I think, it fits perfectly into I mean, you've been writing this material for a long time, it seems.
Well, you know,
psychoanalyzing you.
My earliest memory is being born next to a shipyard and seeing giant ships hovering over the street. So this has been the creative landscape of my dreams, you know, the emotional landscape that I always return to. And I've done it many times. In 1989, my parents died, and the shipyard was closing at the same time. I used that as a rather baleful metaphor for the demise of my parents. So I've been working this material for a long time. And so I used all this time, I used Island of Souls at the beginning of this present show from a different iteration, but it fits.
Mm-hmm. Rachel, I wanted to ask you, is the show really different, having a different co-star, having Sting instead of Jimmy?
It's slightly different. It's not massively different. Sting has his own style with it, his own way. It's very authentic. Well, from him and Jimmy, and we just get a different energy on stage, and it's lovely actually to have someone new come on stage, and the support and the energy and the connection that we have as not only actors but as a community on stage, which is exactly the story we're actually trying to tell. It's a really lovely energy. I enjoy it, and he's been absolutely amazing.
And so much of the show is about fathers and sons. I'm wondering, what would your father have thought of the show? Do you ever imagine what he would have thought if he'd been in the audience and gotten to see you performing this material about your town on stage in Broadway?
I'm hoping he would recognize himself in it, but also that I was honoring him in my memory of him. You know, my dad and I had a difficult relationship. He didn't really understand my desire to have the life I had. You know, he began life as an engineer. Everyone he knew was an engineer. He wanted me to go to a technical school. I would learn technical drawing or engineering or something. And I went to a grammar school. and I learned Latin and Greek and philosophy and all kind of airy stuff. And my dad thought it was useless. And I'm not sure he was wrong. But even when I became successful, he just wasn't sure it was a proper job. And again, he's not wrong. But I did reconcile with him on his deathbed. I took his hand and I realized he and I had exactly the same hands. And I said that. I said, look, I've just noticed this. We have the same hands. He said, aye, son, but you used your hands better than I did. And that was the first compliment he'd ever paid me. And his timing was devastating. But, you know, that's in the play, really. That feeling of reconciliation with the dead is an important one.
And Rachel, since you've performed on the West End, now you're on Broadway, is there a cultural difference there? Is the community different? I mean, what's the feeling like being on Broadway versus the West End in terms of being the actors, the audience? Any difference?
Really, I don't think there is a massive difference. No, as long as the production, the piece is as wonderful as it is, it's the same in the West End. They will appreciate a fantastic production the way they do over here. The actors on stage there are as professional as back home. No, there isn't much difference, except just that I'm on Broadway now, and I've completely fulfilled a complete dream come true of mine. I mean, talk about, you know, hopes and dreams as we do in the show. This was like, in fact, on the program I Do Anything, when I got kicked off the show, the last question they asked me was, what is your ultimate dream? And I remember sitting thinking, do I say this? Will I look very cocky saying this? And I whispered, Broadway. And then I went, oh, let's do the West End first. I remember how cocky this might have came across. But this has been my absolute ultimate dream, and thanks to this man, it's happening. So I couldn't be happier.
And would you do it again? Do you see, no matter what happens with this show, would you ever see yourself writing another show, doing another show?
The Last Ship Part 2.
Well, I can't
second to last ship.
I can't imagine a story that I would find more compelling to tell than this one, because it's very personal to me. But I enjoyed the hurly-burly of the creative process with the collaborators, you know, the writers and the choreographers and the directors, and being told that a song isn't quite right is novel for me. Really? They'd say things like, well, you're not really advancing narrative enough in this song. And I'd look up what that meant. But you have to do that in the theatre. It's a very concise, exacting medium. You have a very short time to tell a complex story, and so the song cannot just channel one emotion. You have to be telling the story. The story has to move on from the first bar to the last bar. Otherwise, it's out. Every song fights for its life, every line in every song, every verse, every character fights for its life. So I enjoyed that push and shove, and being given briefs. You know, write a song for this scene here. Musicalize it, they said. Well, I'd never heard that verb before, but I understood what they meant, and I enjoyed it. So would I do it again? I haven't been invited to, but maybe. I'm not afraid.
Well, on that note, I want to thank everyone for coming to this special performance. Thank Rachel Tucker. Thanks Sting. Thanks Stephanie Cohen. Thank you.